I learned that my husband was stealing from me on the same morning I was told to bury my mother. That sounds impossible. Like two tragedies trying to fit through the same front door, but that is exactly how it happened. I was standing in my kitchen in a black dress, holding a casserole dish from a neighbor who did not know what to say to me when my phone buzzed with a bank alert. Account balance, $12.43. At first, I thought it was a mistake. My mother had just died. My hands were shaking. My eyes were swollen from crying. Maybe I had read it wrong. Maybe the bank app was broken. Maybe grief had made the numbers swim on the screen. But the numbers did not move. $12.43. My checking account. My savings account. The emergency money my mother had helped me build. After my father left, the small fund I kept for property taxes on the little blue house she had left me in St. Augustine, Florida. All of it was gone. I called my husband, Grant, 5 times. He did not answer. Then I called my best friend, Vanessa, because she was supposed to be at the funeral home, helping with the flower arrangements. She did not answer either. That was the first crack in the story they had built around me. By the end of that week, I would be accused of fraud, locked out of my own house, humiliated in front of half the town, and told by a police officer that my marriage was civil matter. By the end of the month, people who had eaten at my table would cross the street to avoid me. But by the end of the year, Grant would be standing in a courtroom with his perfect hair gone gray at the temples. Vanessa would be begging me not to play the recording, and I would be holding the one thing they never thought I had kept. Receipts, not paper receipts from a grocery store. Real receipts. Dates, names, transfer messages, photos, audio. A secret my mother had hidden in a place only I would think to look. And when the judge asked if I had anything else to say, I looked at the 2 people who had buried me alive and smiled. Because the dead woman they created had come back with proof. My name is Claire Whitaker. I am 42 years old. I used to be the kind of woman who apologized when other people stepped on my foot. I used to believe that if I stayed kind, patient, and loyal, the people I loved would never destroy me. I do not believe that anymore. I grew up in a small neighborhood west of St. Augustine, close enough to smell salt in the air when the wind changed. My mother, Ruth, raised me in a blue one-story house with white shutters and a porch that leaned slightly to the left. She said the porch leaned because the house had personality. I said the porch leaned because my father had promised to fix it and then disappeared before I turned 9. My mother never remarried. She worked at a county records office for 31 years, and she had a strange love for filing cabinets, labeled folders, and handwritten notes. She kept warranties for appliances we no longer owned. She kept tax records older than I was. She kept birthday cards, medical bills, gas receipts, and every letter my father had ever mailed after leaving us. I used to tease her about it. Mom, nobody needs a receipt for a blender from 1998. She would smile and tap the drawer with one finger. You never know what will save you, baby. I did not understand that sentence until long after she was gone. I met Grant when I was 35 at a fundraiser for a children's hospital in Jacksonville. He was not the richest man in the room, but he knew how to stand like he belonged among rich men. He had a navy suit, a warm smile, and a way of making eye contact that felt like a spotlight. At the time, I owned a small catering business called Porch Kitchen. I made shrimp rolls, key lime bars, chicken salad croissants, lemon cakes, and anything people ordered for bridal showers, retirement parties, church luncheons, and beach weddings. I worked hard. I did not make much, but the money was honest and the business was mine. Grant told me he admired that. He said, "You built something from nothing." That takes guts. I was not used to men saying things like that to me. 2 months later, he brought me coffee before sunrise while I was loading trays into my van. 4 months later, he kissed me on my mother's leaning porch. A year later, he proposed under the big oak tree by the marina, with people clapping around us like we were in a movie. My mother liked him at first. She liked anyone who made me laugh. But after we got married, I noticed she watched him differently. Not rudely, not openly. Just with that quiet county records office stare, like she was reading a document no one else could see. Once, after Grant left the room, she asked me, "Does he ever talk to you about money when you're tired?" I laughed because it sounded so specific. "Everybody talks about money when they're tired, Mom." She did not laugh. She said, "Be careful what you sign when you're tired." That was my mother. She could turn a normal sentence into a warning bell. Grant wanted us to grow my business. He said Salt Porch Kitchen could become a full restaurant. He said I had talent but no ambition. At first, that hurt. Then he softened it by saying he only meant I deserved more. He introduced me to a friend named Peter Hales, who worked in private lending. Peter wore expensive watches and called every woman ma'am, which somehow made him sound polite and fake at the same time. Grant said Peter could help us refinance, invest, and expand. I said no. I did not want loans. I did not want investors. I did not want to risk my mother's house. My mother had already signed the deed over to me, but she still lived there, and I considered it hers as much as mine. That house was our shelter, our proof that we had survived my father leaving. Grant said he understood. Then he started bringing it up at night. Always at night. When I was exhausted from cooking 12 hours, when my feet hurt, when my mother had a doctor appointment the next morning, when my brain felt soft and slow. He would sit on the edge of our bed and say, "Claire, I'm not trying to pressure you. I'm trying to protect our future." I would say, "The house is not part of our future. The house is Mom." He would sigh like I was being emotional. And I would feel guilty because Grant was so good at making my boundaries sound like insults. The first time Vanessa met him, she said, "Girl, you married up." Vanessa had been my best friend since community college. She was loud, beautiful, and sharp in the way broken glass is sharp. People loved her until they were cut by her. She sold real estate and always seemed one closing away from either a new car or total disaster. She and Grant became friends quickly. Too quickly, my mother said. I told Mom she was being suspicious. She said, "Suspicion is what people call attention when they don't like being watched." When again, I laughed it off. That was the old me. The woman who laughed at warning signs because believing them would have required action. Everything changed the night my mother fell. It was a Tuesday in late September. I was frosting cupcakes for a retirement party when my phone rang. It was my mother's neighbor, Mr. Alvarez, shouting that he had found her on the kitchen floor. I drove so fast I do not remember stopping at red lights. At the hospital, the doctor said she had suffered a stroke. She survived the first night. Then the second. Then she opened her eyes and squeezed my hand. But she could not speak clearly. Her words came out broken, like pieces of glass in her mouth. Grant was wonderful in front of the nurses. He brought coffee. He handled calls. He called me baby and rubbed my shoulders. Vanessa came too, with fresh clothes and a sad face that looked practiced in the mirror. On the fourth night, Mom became agitated. She kept trying to write something with her finger on the blanket. I leaned close. "What is it, Mom?" She dragged her finger in a shape. A number, then another. Then she gave up and cried. I thought she was scared. I thought she was frustrated because she could not make her body obey her. Now I know she was trying to tell me a combination. 2 weeks later, she died. I do not like to say, passed away. It sounds too gentle. My mother fought to stay. And death took her anyway. The funeral was planned for Saturday morning. Grant said he would handle the bank appointment afterward. Because there were state details. Vanessa said she would help because real estate paperwork was her world. I was grateful. I was stupidly, dangerously grateful. The morning of the funeral, I got the bank alert. $12.43. Grant did not answer. Vanessa did not answer. I drove to the bank in my black dress instead of the funeral home. The bank manager, a tired woman named Mrs. Bell, looked at my account and frowned in a way that made my stomach drop. She said, "Mrs. Whitaker, these transfers were authorized." I said, "By who?" She turned the monitor slightly away from me. "By you?" "No, I did not authorize anything." She printed a page. My name was there. My login. My security questions. Transfers to 3 different business accounts, including one called Hales Growth Partners. Peter. My mouth went cold. I said, "That is my husband's friend." Mrs. Bell said, "I understand this is upsetting. But if your credentials were used." My mother is being buried in 2 hours. Her face changed. Not enough to help me, but enough to show she still had a heart. She lowered her voice. "You should file a report. And change every password you have." I missed the first 20 minutes of my mother's funeral because I was at the sheriff's office, explaining that someone had emptied my accounts. The deputy listened with the tired patience of a man who had already decided my problem did not belong to him.
"Could be marital,"
he said. "He stole my money." "Your husband had access. Not legally. But you're married." I remember staring at him, thinking, if a stranger breaks into my house, it is a crime. If my husband breaks into my life, it becomes a misunderstanding. By the time I reached the funeral home, the service had started. Grant was standing near my mother's casket, crying into a white handkerchief. Vanessa sat in the front row with her head bowed. They looked like grieving angels. I looked like the crazy woman who arrived late to her own mother's funeral. After the burial, Grant pulled me aside under a cedar tree. "Where were you?" he whispered. "At the bank." His face barely moved, but I saw it, a flash. A small calculation behind his eyes. I said, "My accounts are empty." He looked around, like my grief was embarrassing him. "Not here, Claire." "Did you do it?" He stepped back like I had slapped him. "Your mother died and this is what you're doing." That was the beginning of the performance. For the next 3 days, Grant treated me like I was unstable. He told people I was confused. He told them grief had made me paranoid. He told me I had probably moved the money myself and forgotten. When I cried, he called it a breakdown. When I got angry, he called it proof. Then, on Thursday, I came home from buying groceries and my key did not work. The locks had been changed. Grant opened the door wearing the expression of a man welcoming a dangerous animal. Behind him, on our kitchen island, were 2 suitcases. Mine. "What is this?" I asked. He said, "I think you need space." "This is my house too." He held up a folder. "Actually, the house is under review." I did not understand. He handed me a copy of a document I had never seen. It said I had agreed to use my mother's house as collateral for a business development loan. My signature was at the bottom. My signature. Close enough to make my knees weak. "But not mine," Grant said. "You signed it months ago." "No, I didn't. You were stressed. You forget things." "No." He lowered his voice. "Claire, you need help." That sentence became his weapon. "You need help." He said it when I called the police. He said it when I called a lawyer. He said it when Vanessa arrived, pretending she had no idea what was happening. Vanessa hugged me on the sidewalk while my suitcases sat by my feet. She smelled like my perfume. Not similar perfume. Mine. The bottle I kept on my dresser. The one Grant had bought me for our anniversary. I pulled away and looked at her. She said, "Honey, you're scaring everyone." And right there, in the thin space between grief and rage, I knew. Not everything. Not the whole plan. But enough. They were together. Maybe not in love. Maybe not in the soft, loyal, real way love should be. But they were connected. They were hiding something that smelled like my perfume and spoke in my husband's voice. That night, I slept in my catering van behind a closed seafood restaurant near the beach. I had $40 in cash, 2 suitcases, a dead phone, and no mother. I also had my mother's words. "You never know what will save you, baby." The next morning, I went to her blue house. The porch still leaned. The white shutters still needed paint. Her gardenia bush was still blooming by the steps, because plants do not care if the person who loved them is gone. I stood in the doorway and broke. Not cried. Broke. I slid down the wall and made a sound I had never heard come out of me before. It was not sadness. It was a whole life tearing open. Then I got up, because grief can knock you down, but betrayal teaches you to stand. I charged my phone in my mother's kitchen and started making calls. The first lawyer wanted $5,000 to start. The second wanted $3,000. The third said forged signatures were hard to prove unless I had evidence. Evidence. My mother had built her whole life around evidence. I started searching the house. At first, I looked in obvious places. Desk drawers, file cabinets, the metal lockbox under her bed. I found tax returns, insurance papers, my birth certificate, and a folder labeled CLAIR, IMP Orte NT. Inside were copies of the deed, my mother's will, and a handwritten note. "Baby, if you are reading this because I am gone, breathe first. Do not let anyone rush you. Important papers are in the normal places. Important truth is not. Important truth is not." I read that sentence 10 times. Then I searched like my mother, not like myself. I checked under drawers for taped envelopes. I opened old cookbooks. I removed picture frames from walls. I looked inside coffee cans, behind loose baseboards, under folded quilts. Nothing. At sunset, Mr. Alvarez knocked on the back door. He was 78, a retired mechanic with silver hair and hands like old leather. He brought soup in a plastic container. "I saw your van," he said. I wanted to pretend I was fine, but my face betrayed me. He stepped inside and looked around the kitchen. "Your mama worried," he said. "About what?" He hesitated. "About your husband." My heart began to pound. What did she say? She asked me to keep an eye out. Said if something happened, I should tell you about the shed. The shed. He pointed toward the backyard. My mother's shed was a tiny white building behind the gardenias. She kept paint cans, old Christmas decorations, and tools there. I had already looked inside, but not carefully. Mr. Alvarez said, "She changed the lock 3 months ago." Told me if anybody but you asked. I should say I didn't know nothing. I found the key on my mother's key ring, hidden behind the little plastic tag for the mailbox. Inside the shed, the air smelled like dust and old wood. I moved boxes. I opened bins. I found nothing but a fake Christmas tree and my father's old fishing rods. Then I saw the floor. One plywood board near the back wall had 2 screws that were newer than the others. My mother had never liked power tools. If she had screwed that board down herself, it mattered. I borrowed Mr. Alvarez's drill. Under the board was a fireproof bag. Inside the bag was a small digital recorder, a flash drive, a folded letter, and a stack of printed emails. My hands shook so badly I dropped the letter twice before I opened it. "Claire, if I am wrong, forgive me. If I am right, do not confront them alone. Grant has been asking about the house too much." Vanessa came by when you were working and said she needed a copy of my old property survey for a buyer nearby. I did not like the way she looked through my desk. I checked the county records. Someone filed a preliminary lien request connected to Hale's Growth Partners. Your name is on paperwork I do not believe you signed. I tried to tell you, but you were tired, and I was afraid you would defend him before you protected yourself. I know that hurts. I am sorry. The recorder has a conversation I captured in my kitchen when Grant and Vanessa thought I was asleep in the bedroom. The flash drive has copies of everything I found. Remember, truth first, anger second. I love you more than this house, more than my own life, more than any fear. Mom. I sat on the shed floor and pressed the recorder button. At first, there was only static. Then Grant's voice. She suspects something. Vanessa laughed softly. Claire suspects weather changes. She doesn't act. My stomach twisted. Grant said, Ruth is the problem. My mother. Hearing him say her name like she was a locked door made me want to put my fist through the wall. Vanessa said, then move before Ruth does. Grant said, Peter says we need the deed clean by the end of the quarter. Vanessa answered, I can handle the notary. I know a guy who owes me. Then Grant said the sentence that turned my blood into ice. Once Claire looks unstable, nobody will believe her. I stopped the recorder. For a minute, I could not breathe. There it was. Not the whole crime, but the shape of it, the plan. The beginning of my burial. They had not emptied my accounts because they panicked. They had done it because money was my ability to fight. They had not changed the locks because Grant needed space. They had done it so I would look homeless, hysterical, and desperate. They had not comforted me at my mother's funeral. They had stood over the casket of the one woman who had caught them and pretended to mourn. I wanted revenge that night. Not justice. Revenge. I wanted to drive to the house and scream the recording through a speaker. I wanted to break every window. I wanted to drag Vanessa by that stolen perfume cloud and show the whole town what she was. But my mother's letter lay in my lap. Truth first, anger second. So I waited. Waiting was the hardest thing I have ever done. For 6 weeks, I became someone else. I stopped calling Grant. I stopped sending desperate texts. I stopped trying to convince people I was sane. I let the town believe what it wanted, because every time Grant thought he was winning, he got careless. I took a job washing dishes at a diner off Highway 1. At night, I slept in my mother's house on an air mattress, because the furniture had too many memories. During the day, I learned how to investigate my own life. I went to the county records office, where my mother had worked. Half the women there had known me since I was a child. One of them, Miss Donna, hugged me so hard my ribs hurt. When I asked for copies of every filing connected to my name, my mother's house, Grant, Vanessa, Peter Hale's, and Hale's Growth Partners, Donna did not ask why. She just said, Your mama taught me how to find things people hide badly. The documents came slowly. A lien request, a private loan agreement, a notarized signature page, a quitclaim draft that had not yet been filed. My name appeared again and again, like a ghost walking through rooms I had never entered. The notary stamp belonged to a man named Evan Price. Evan Price had died 8 months before the signature date. That was the first clean break. Dead men cannot notarize documents. I took that information to a lawyer named Marisol Vega. She was not fancy. Her office sat between a nail salon and a bail bonds place. Her desk was covered in files, coffee cups, and one framed photo of a teenage boy in a baseball uniform. I played the recording. I showed her the documents. I showed her the dead notary. She listened without interrupting. Then she leaned back and said, Claire, I can't promise you fast, but I can promise you loud. I started crying because loud was the first hope anyone had offered me. Marisol helped me file a fraud complaint with the state attorney's office, not just the sheriff. She sent letters to the bank, the lender, and the title company. She requested security footage from the notary office, login data from the bank, and metadata from the forged documents. Most people think revenge is one big dramatic moment. It is not. Real revenge is paperwork done correctly. It is patience with a stapler. It is sending certified mail when your hands want to throw stones. Grant did not know I had a lawyer at first. He thought I was broken. He sent me one message after weeks of silence. "Claire, I hope you're getting help. I still care about you." I stared at those words until my anger became calm. Then I typed back, "You're right. I needed help. I found it." He did not reply. 2 days later, Vanessa called. I let it ring. She left a voicemail so sweet it could rot your teeth. "Claire, honey, I know things have been hard. Grant is worried. I'm worried. Maybe we can all sit down and talk like adults." Talk like adults. That was what guilty people said when evidence started breathing down their neck. I saved the voicemail. I saved everything. Meanwhile, the flash drive from my mother's fireproof bag became a map. It had screenshots of emails between Vanessa and Peter, copies of county searches, photos of Vanessa's car parked outside my mother's house when Vanessa claimed she was at a showing, a spreadsheet my mother had made with dates, times, names, and notes. At the bottom of the spreadsheet, my mother had typed one sentence: "Follow the insurance." I did not understand at first. Then Marisol found it, 3 months before my mother's stroke. Grant had taken out a life insurance policy on me through a company connected to Peter's investment group. Not a huge policy. $250,000. Enough to matter, not enough to scream murder. The beneficiary was Grant. I felt sick when Marisol told me. "He was planning for me to die?" She said carefully. "I don't know what he planned. I know he prepared to profit." That sentence haunted me. I thought about every meal Grant had cooked, every drink he had handed me, every time he said I looked tired and should rest. I searched my memories like a crime scene. But then came the twist I did not expect. The policy had been canceled. Not by Grant, by Vanessa. She had sent an email to Peter saying, "Too risky. Claire's more useful alive until the property clears." More useful alive. I read those words in Marisol's office and felt something inside me harden permanently. It was not just betrayal anymore. It was business. My grief, my marriage, my mother's house, my sanity. These were assets on their table. That day, I stopped wanting them to apologize. I wanted them exposed so completely that every room they entered would know what they had done before they opened their mouths. Marisol warned me not to contact them. The state investigator warned me not to interfere. Even Mr. Alvarez warned me not to do anything. To Florida, which was his way of saying do not end up on the evening news. I promised. Mostly. But I also knew something the investigators did not. Vanessa loved an audience. She loved being seen as successful, generous, and glamorous. She posted every charity lunch, every closing, every sunset cocktail, every quote about loyalty. She had recently joined the board of a local women's shelter fundraiser. The gala was scheduled for December at a waterfront hotel. Grant was going with her. Not officially, of course. Officially, he was the heartbroken husband of an unstable woman. Officially, Vanessa was my concerned best friend. Officially, they were both generous sponsors of a charity event for women rebuilding their lives. The hypocrisy was so perfect it felt like a gift. I told Marisol I wanted to attend. She said, "Absolutely not." I said, "I won't speak to them." She stared at me over her glasses. "Claire, I won't start anything. Claire, I will buy a ticket and stand in the room." She sighed. Do you understand that people like Grant want you to look unstable? Yes. Then do not give them a scene. I smiled for the first time in weeks. I'm not going to give them a scene. I'm going to give them a mirror. The gala was on a Friday night. I wore a simple black dress that had belonged to my mother. It was not fancy, but it fit me like courage. I pinned her small silver brooch to the collar. It was shaped like a key. Before I left, I stood on the leaning porch and breathed in the cold air. Truth first, I whispered. Anger second. The hotel ballroom glittered like nothing bad had ever happened inside it. White tablecloths, gold lights, champagne glasses. A string quartet playing songs people pretended to recognize. I walked in alone. The room shifted, not loudly, not enough for anyone to admit it, but heads turned, conversations thinned. People saw me and remembered the version of me Grant had sold them. Unstable Claire. Poor Claire. Crazy Claire. I kept walking. Vanessa saw me first. She was near the stage, wearing a red dress and my perfume. Again, my perfume. As if taking my money, my house, and my husband had not been enough. She had to wear my scent too. Her smile froze. Grant stood beside her in a charcoal suit, one hand on the small of her back. When he saw me, his hand dropped. Good. I took a seat at a table near the back. I did not drink. I did not cry. I did not approach them. I waited. The fundraiser began with speeches about courage, survival, and women needing safe homes after betrayal and abuse. Every word landed like a match in gasoline. Then Vanessa walked onstage to present an award. She smiled at the crowd. She said, "Tonight is about believing women when they tell us they have been hurt." I almost laughed. Instead, I took out my phone. Marisol had told me not to start a scene. I had listened. I had not brought posters. I had not grabbed a microphone. I had not yelled. I simply opened the event's public social media page, where guests were posting photos and comments in real time. Then I uploaded 3 things. A photo of the forged notary page. A screenshot showing the notary had died before the date. A 15-second clip from my mother's recorder. Grant's voice. Once Claire looks unstable, nobody will believe her. I posted it with 1 sentence. My mother believed me. She kept proof. Then I turned off my phone and placed it face down on the table. Vanessa was still speaking when the first phone buzzed. Then another. Then 10. The sound moved through the ballroom like insects in the walls. People looked down. People whispered. Someone gasped. A man near the front turned in his chair and stared at Grant. Vanessa faltered. She looked at the screen of the podium monitor, then at Grant, then at me. For 1 second, the whole room saw her real face. Not polished, not concerned, afraid. Grant walked toward me fast. Too fast. I stayed seated. He leaned down and hissed, "What did you do?" I looked up at him calmly. "I got help." His face twisted. "You have no idea what you're messing with." That was when Marisol stepped out from behind a column with 2 state investigators. I had not known she would come. Later, she told me she knew me well enough, by then to assume I might be technically obedient. One investigator touched Grant's arm and asked him to step outside. Vanessa tried to leave through the side door, but another investigator was already there. I did not clap. I did not smile. I did not stand on a chair and shout victory. I just sat in my mother's black dress while the room rearranged itself around the truth. After that night, everything accelerated. The post spread through town before Vanessa could delete anything. The bank froze the business accounts. The title company admitted the loan papers had not been verified correctly. Peter Hales vanished for 2 weeks, then came back with a lawyer and a face that looked 10 years older. By then, I had stopped chasing apologies. I wanted consequences. The evidence did what shouting never could. The dead notary's stamp led investigators to Peter. Peter admitted he had helped move the money and prepare the false papers. He tried to blame Grant. Grant tried to blame Vanessa. Vanessa tried to say she was only helping a friend. But my mother's recorder told a cleaner story than any of them. At the hearing, the full recording was played. Grant worrying that my mother was suspicious. Vanessa saying I would never act. Peter's name. The forged notary. Their plan to make me look unstable before I could fight back. The courtroom stayed quiet until their laughter came through the speaker. That laughter changed everything. Documents can be argued over. Signatures can be questioned. Money can be explained in circles. But laughter has a language of its own. Their latter said they knew exactly what they were doing. When I testified, Grant's attorney tried to make my anger sound like a crime. Mrs. Whitaker, you wanted revenge, didn't you? I looked at the jury and said, yes. I wanted revenge because they hurt me. But wanting revenge and telling the truth are not the same thing. I chose truth because my mother raised me. After that, Grant stopped looking at me. In the end, Grant pleaded guilty to fraud and conspiracy. Peter took a deal and testified. Vanessa fought the longest, but the evidence buried her. She lost her real estate license, her charity position, and the good name she had spent years polishing. Grant got prison time, restitution, and a divorce he did not control. The false loan was voided. The lien was removed. The blue house was mine again. Not all my money came back, but enough did. More importantly, my name came back. My sanity came back. My voice came back. I reopened Salt Porch Kitchen near the marina. On opening day, the line went around the block. Some people came for lemon cake. Some came because they were sorry. Some came because towns love a woman after she wins more than they love her while she is fighting. I served them anyway. Not because I forgot. Because bitterness is too expensive, and I had already paid enough. A year after my mother died, I held a dinner on the porch of the blue house. Mr. Alvarez came. Miss Donna came. Marisol came with her son. The porch no longer leaned because Mr. Alvarez had fixed it. The house had not lost its personality. It had learned how to stand straight. So had I later. I opened my mother's old recipe box. Inside were little notes. If someone rushes you, slow down. A locked door is not proof you do not own the house. Never argue with a liar in the dark. Turn on the light. At the very back was one card addressed to me. For Claire, when she finally understands. Under that, my mother had written, keeping receipts is not about living in the past. It is about making sure the past cannot lie about you. Grant wrote me one letter from prison. He said he was sorry. He said Vanessa manipulated him. He said he had loved me in his own way. I folded the letter and put it in my mother's filing cabinet under G. Not for Grant. For garbage. Now I keep a framed copy of that first bank alert behind the counter at Salt Porch Kitchen. $12.43. To me, it is not a reminder of what I lost. It is a reminder of the morning I woke up. The morning they thought they had emptied me. The morning I learned that a woman with nothing left can become the most dangerous person in the room. Especially when she stops begging liars for the truth and starts collecting it herself. My mother used to say, "You never know what will save you, baby." Now I know. Sometimes what saves you is a note, a date, a key, a voice on a recorder, or a receipt. And sometimes the best revenge is not becoming cruel, like the people who hurt you. It is standing in your own house, under your own name, with your own life back in your hands, and knowing they failed. They tried to bury me under lies. But they forgot my mother taught me how to dig. And when I came back up, I did not come back empty-handed.